crime. Her little body was found right here.
A young girl is murdered.
We have to find out the truth. Did you kill Sarah Cherry?
We all believed that if we found the truck, we would find her.
A killer sent away for the rest of his life.
Your truck is here, the body's here, and you come out of the woods over here.
No evidence of her found in his truck. I doubt very seriously if he walked 2 to 3 miles from here.
16 years later, some say the police got the wrong man.
I swear to God, I did not take that girl's life.
You got a 12-year-old girl missing late at night, and you don't detain this guy? What's wrong with that picture? Tom, hi. Any new information?
My name is Jerry Palace. I'm a private investigator and a former detective with the New York City Police Department.
He's taken into custody at 8:30 p.m., right?
8:30 p.m.
Court TV has asked me and my partner, former NYPD homicide detective Reggie Britt, to help investigate a controversial murder case. At 3 p.m. on July 6, 1988, police were called to a house in Bowdoin, Maine. A woman had come home from work to find her baby asleep in her crib. But Sarah Cherry, the 12-year-old babysitter she had hired, was nowhere to be found. Police searched the area and found a notebook and a car repair estimate at the foot of the driveway. Both appeared to belong to a person named Dennis DeShane. By 9:30 p.m., there was still no sign of Sarah. But as the police circled the area, they came across a young man who claimed he'd been fishing and had gotten lost in the woods and couldn't find his truck. That man was Dennis DeShane. 2 days later, searchers found the body of Sarah Cherry. It was deep in the woods, 3 miles from the house where she had been babysitting. DeShane's truck was found just 150 yards away. At trial, the prosecution was able to show that the girl had been bound with rope and a scarf that came from DeShane's truck. And though there were no witnesses to the abduction or murder, it took a jury less than 10 hours to find the defendant guilty. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. DeShane has always denied any involvement in the murder, and now his defense team says they have the evidence to prove it.
They're going to let us look at all the evidence from the crime scene. They're going to let us look at the evidence from the truck, the rope and everything.
After researching this case for nearly 10 months, it was time to head up to Maine and see for ourselves.
Why would he just jump up and just viciously murder a 12-year-old girl? And furthermore, he didn't know the girl, did he? I don't think he knew her. He didn't know her or anybody in her family.
No.
It's got to be something they didn't uncover yet.
The next day, we headed out to meet Dennis DeShane. Before the murder, Dennis DeShane's life seemed to be going well. In 1983, he married his college sweetheart. And soon after, the couple started a small but successful farming business in the tiny town of Bowdoinham, about half an hour north of Portland. We wanted to speak to Dennis's wife, but she had moved out to Colorado and moved on with her life. Although she supported Dennis throughout his trial, a rift had grown in their marriage. Dennis had a drug problem. That's what he claimed he was doing in the woods the day Sarah Cherry disappeared, taking drugs.
But why was Dennis, he's got a 50-acre farm. You know, if I'm going to do drugs, I'm probably going to stick close to home. Well, you don't want his wife to know. His wife just got on his case about it.
We drove to Maine State Prison, a maximum security facility where Dennis DeShane has spent the last 17 years behind bars. With no possibility of parole, this could be where he'll spend the rest of his life.
Good morning, how are you?
Morning.
But you know what I want you to do now? I want you to take us back to that day. Back to the day
We're talking about
murder
July
of Sarah Cherry.
6, 1988. I went basically wandering around the Bowden Woods, found a place to park my truck, and I did drugs. And when the sun started going down, I decided it was time to go home, and I couldn't remember how I'd gotten in there. I was wandering around trying to find my truck, and this old couple happened upon me. They said, "Can we help you? You lost?" A half hour, 45 minutes into the search for my truck, we happened on a police cruiser, a sheriff's car, and we flagged them down, and I jumped in with them, and that's when my nightmare began.
Were you still high?
Oh, I was, yes, very much so. And it was terrifying. They start asking me questions, and I mean, getting in my face, yelling and screaming, that type of thing. This went on, and they brought in a state police detective. And then he said, "Are you willing, when we find your truck, are you willing to let us have it to do an analysis?" He says, "Well, if Sarah Cherry has been in your truck, we will know." I said, "Well, by all means, take the truck." Okay, they held me there another hour or so, and then they took me home. The next day, they show up in the morning. Cops show up in my yard with a search warrant.
So basically, except for the drugs, you were basically a good kid?
That was my problem. That was my mistress. If you look at how things were going in my life, you know, business-wise, and finally getting to a point where we had to have accountants tell us to spend money to keep the government from getting it. We were doing well.
If you didn't do it, if you didn't murder this little girl, then who did?
Somebody who knew her. I'm convinced of that. This was Sarah Cherry's first babysitting job. She had been asked by her mom not to let anybody into the house that she didn't know, and if anybody showed up in the driveway, to call her. She never called her mother.
Let me ask you something. Did you kill Sarah Cherry?
Absolutely not. I did not kill Sarah Cherry. And for that matter, I've never hurt anybody in my life.
Well-rehearsed guy.
I couldn't read him.
Very, very hard to read.
It's just a strange coincidence to me. Some little girl is missing right over here. My car happens to be found right by her body.
But you can't find it.
I don't know, that's still, that's a hell of a coincidence. That night, we drove to the town of Waterville to meet with Michaela Murphy, the defense attorney who took over the case in 2003. We asked her for her account of the Shane story.
He was lost in the woods, and he came out of the woods. He was exhausted, and he started making statements to the police that did not add up and did not make sense because he was terrified that they were going to find out that he'd been in the woods shooting up drugs.
I mean, they found rope from his car. They had some things that supposedly fell out of his truck at the abduction scene. I mean, it sounds kind of overwhelming. You'll agree to that,
absolutely.
right?
I certainly don't fault them at all for focusing on him. That once somebody's charged, the investigation stops and the search for truth stops. And at that point, there's a major shift in everything that's going on the law enforcement side, which is now we have to make our case and we have to convict the guy.
Do we have any DNA evidence about this guy?
After trial's over, the appeals are lost. The state of Maine lab determined that the DNA that was under the victim's fingernails is male DNA, and that male DNA is not Dennis DeShane's DNA.
So this guy's out there.
That's the part of it that I think is really hard for the state of Maine to even think about, because if Dennis DeShane is found not guilty, this monster is out there, and they're responsible for that.
Very long way to go on this guy.
I have a different, going there, I felt that Dennis could be the guy. After speaking with her, she made a lot of sense to me about a lot of things, and now I have more of an open mind towards Dennis, that maybe he could be the wrong guy.
He could be the wrong guy.
They brought the tracking dog. Now, if the lab couldn't find any trace of this girl, and the dog couldn't find any trace of the girl, she wasn't in that truck.